Welcome. You're watching Inside America. I'm Kritika Saxena. As the Prime Minister Narendra Modi tries to hard sell the India story to investors in the United States and here in Silicon Valley, we get you all the top reactions from the startup capital of the world, the technology hub of the world, that is the Silicon Valley. Well, joining me now is Ravi Mhatre, the Managing Director of Lightspeed Capital. Ravi was the man to start up Lightspeed Capital's office in India way back in 2006, and I'm catching him now in Silicon Valley. Thank you so much, Ravi, for speaking to CNBC-TV18.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to speak with you.
You know, Ravi, it's in the last 10 years, things have significantly changed as far as the India investment, venture capital investment scenario is concerned. You're here in the Silicon Valley, but of course you do get a sense about, Lightspeed is present in India significantly. You do get a sense about how things are changing on ground. Over the last 2 years, or over the last 1.5 years, since the new government has come into place, a lot of efforts have been put into place to ease of doing business in India. We're still 142 in the World Bank ranking, yes, but as an investor, do you feel that you're more confident to invest in India than you were about 2 years ago?
I think we definitely are seeing a lot of the indicators in India move up and to the right. And it's been, for us as venture capital investors, a lot of it has to do with just the maturing of the market. We've been investing. I traveled to India originally professionally to set up Lightspeed's office in 2005, so it's been a little over 10 years. And in that time, we've seen a first generation of entrepreneurs who've started companies and been successful, and they're now circling back into the ecosystem. And so you have just more experienced people who understand more about how to build and grow startups. You have some very fundamental changes in the last 2 years around just the consumer technologies in India, in particular the smartphones and high-speed data that can be delivered over the wireless, over the air. But you're seeing an unprecedented level of internet usage by Indian consumers. You know, we've been believers in the potential for India as a highly educated, emerging economy. We've been really believers for a long time that India would emerge, along the same way, in the same way that China did. And I think in the last few years we really are seeing that start to happen in a much bigger way. So it's quite exciting. Do you believe that India would probably be able to catch up on the opportunities that they would obviously get, given that the other emerging markets are so volatile? Well, that's an interesting question, and we think one of the things that distinguishes India, particularly compared to China, but also even Brazil, is it is distinctly not an export-driven economy. China is the poster child for really an economy that grew on the back of, heavy exports to other modernized countries. India, when you really look at the growth cycle that's happening, a lot of it is really internally driven. Yeah. So it's, industries that are growing to serve the emerging middle class, and it's those people in the emerging middle class in India, and it's a big number. It's, several hundred million. It's those people now starting to put their consumer dollars, back into India native industries and companies. And so, we're conscious of volatility, and that does affect all markets globally, because it really relates to how confident investor capital, can be to fund new businesses. On the other hand, we think India is likely to do better than many of the BRIC economies, as they're called, because it is really such a strong internal, driver of growth that we're seeing kind of fuel a lot of the businesses that we're funding. So at this point in time, when you look at parking your capital or your investment, would you prefer India to the other emerging geographies? I'd say right now, India is the place where we believe the risk return is better in terms of valuations, in terms of the upside potential than the other large market where we've invested internationally, which is China. Okay. Yeah. Let me ask you in that case about the Prime Minister Modi will be coming down to the Silicon Valley. His pitch is to not only learn from the startups over here, but also try to increase investment, sell the India growth story. Do you believe that investing in India is still slightly difficult? The sense I get from Silicon Valley investors, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this, the sense is that
India has still not completely opened up. So as a foreign investor, it's not very easy to be investing in India. You have to incorporate in Mauritius and not in India. There are many areas over there. Do those concerns stop you when you look at investing in India?
Well, I would say, of course, there's friction. And in any emerging economy, there are different flavors and forms of that friction that exists. But I would say, you know, the offset to that is that the growth potential is really huge. And I do think that, you know, Modi, his mindset, and India is a huge country, so, you know, we're very conscious that nobody can kind of wave their hand and make things just different overnight. But I think his mindset about being, you know, someone who understands that investment capital and that new businesses really are going to be a source of, you know, growth and prosperity for the Indian economy and Indians generally. I think he has a mindset that, and from things that I've heard anecdotally, that's just going to push through some of the bureaucracy that has slowed, you know, really obvious things that just, you know, they don't hurt anyone, are going to help businesses grow. He really, you know, does seem like he has a mindset to kind of sweep away some of the bureaucratic tendencies to stop, you know, progress from happening. And I think, you know, it may not be perfect, but I do think that people are going to derive confidence from that, and when they see that, you know, more capital will flow, and just generally the upward cycle, you know, will start to spin. So I think he's a tremendous a breath of fresh air.
The quality of startups and entrepreneurs that's available, I think in the last 2 to 3 years, startups have, I mean, the number of startups that have come out has been phenomenal. There's been unprecedented growth in the startup ecosystem. Valuations are almost in a bubble in some areas, if you take e-commerce for an example.
Unless you compare them to Silicon Valley, of course, but yes.
Absolutely. So the point that Prime Minister Modi is making is that, you know, we are reaching a point where we can try to create a Silicon Valley-like ecosystem within India. Do you believe that India has what it takes, Indian startup and entrepreneurs have what it takes to be able to match the kind of innovation that the Valley presents?
You know, good question. I wouldn't try to compare India, and there have been lots of countries and lots of places and points in time where people have said, we're going to create the Silicon Valley of X, you know, the Silicon Forest, the Silicon Desert. I probably wouldn't, I don't think of it that way. What I have noticed, and I think is terrific in India, is particularly over the last 3 to 5 years, it used to be, when we've originally started investing in India, we found a handful. You had to be 10 sigma to the right in terms of your willingness to take risk and carve a new path in India if you wanted to do a startup. It just was not really even culturally accepted. You know, the thing that's been really refreshing to see, I think we have hit...
That mindset has changed now. You no longer need to be a part of a Tata or a Birla to be doing well.
The best and the brightest come out and say, I want to start a company. And that essence of the young, you know, new minds, who really are the ones who are going to drive change, that change is very similar to what we have here in Silicon Valley. Okay. And I think, you know, there will be differences in what kinds of innovations and, you know, how companies emerge. But the mindset that says if you're young and you're bright and you're ambitious, that the path to take is one where you strike out on your own, and it may feel risky, but you try to do something entrepreneurial. That's really the spirit of Silicon Valley. And I mean, I can't tell you how pleasing it has been to, whenever I go to India and I'm with you know, our team on the ground there, you know, to meet these incredibly talented young people who just, they really want to change the world, and they want to start by changing things in India. And that, I think if you have that, it's you know, the seeds for the kind of startup ecosystem are going to be very strong.
So that brings me to my other question, Ravi. The concern, the criticism has been that, you know, despite the amount of energy that is there in India, the fact is that we still haven't created, you look at China, we still haven't created an Alibaba, we still haven't created a Facebook or a WhatsApp. Do you believe that in terms of talent, if you ignore the regulatory framework, if you ignore the policy framework currently, if you just take the talent, do you believe that India has what it takes to be able to reach that level of innovation? And of course, if they did, what are the areas of regulatory hurdles that they need to kind of swoop through?
Well, first of all, I absolutely do. And the simple thing I would say is if you look at China, the internet economy got started in about 2000. Yeah. And yeah, today we're looking back and we're seeing many multi-billion-dollar internet companies that exist. The internet economy in India, really got started in earnest probably more in 2007, 2008. So, companies like Flipkart, companies like Snapdeal, companies like Oyo Rooms, where we're invested, which is this Airbnb type model. These are companies that I'm highly confident we'll look back in over the next 5 to 7 years, and we'll be pointing to companies with multi-billion-dollar enterprise values. So I think the kind of technical depth and the level to innovate in India is absolutely there. We just started the race, probably 5 to 7 years later than China, because that's when the technology infrastructure in the country was ready. I guess to your second point about what do we,
do to sort of handle, because the sense I get is that the talent is there, the capability is there, but maybe the risk-taking ability, given the lack of clarity with respect to bankruptcy laws, with respect to regulatory uncertainty, that seems to be kind of tying their hands behind.
I think that's a place where the government could do more.
And you think that the government is trying? Are they, do you believe in the last couple of years, I mean, they've been talking about building Startup India. That's been one of the key focuses aside from Digital India, so on and so forth. But do you believe that that is one of the things that they will look into before?
I think for early stage startups, the most important thing is really this cultural shift where the best and the brightest are willing to undertake these ventures. I think that has happened. And as long as the government, the most important thing is going to be when these companies start to try to go public or they become large, valuable companies, the government of India past would kind of rub their hands and say, this is a great opportunity to create a tax or to, to do something that inhibits growth. I mean, I'm optimistic that, again, that Prime Minister Modi's mindset is going to be more, hey, these are the kind of crown jewels that we can create in India, and is going to pull government out of the way so these companies, not just the companies, but the investors who took the risk early, that people, can get their, returns. If that happens, I think, the cycle will just accelerate. But it's probably over the next 3 to 5 years that, the Indian government will have to, really live up to this commitment of behaving differently towards, kind of fast growth industries than it has in the past.
All right, let's take a short break on that note, but stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. More from Inside America on the other side.